Hello everyone, welcome to Accounting 210. In this video, we will talk about Chapter 2, Building Blocks of Manager Accounting. I think we will have at least 2 or even 3 videos. I don't want to make a video that lasts for 1 hour and then you fall asleep at the end, right? So let's make some short videos around 10 to 15 minutes per video, and then we can have 2 or 3. Okay, so chapter 2, you can look at the name is building blocks of our course. So what's the meaning? It basically gives you most of the terminology you should know, at least for our first exam, for the first part of our course actually. So we will talk a lot of terminology in this chapter. You may feel overwhelmed at the very beginning. Don't worry too much if you say, oh my goodness, why there are so many things. I understand your feeling. Slow down, take your time. Hopefully once we finish chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 6, before our first exam, you should feel much better with this chapter 2. If you took Accounting 200 at SIUE, I would say this chapter is kind of like the first 4 chapters, give you a general brief idea on, on the terminology, and then in the following chapters, we will talk about those things in detail. So this chapter is very important, but don't worry, don't cry too much if you feel you don't understand it immediately, okay? So now let's get started. Learning objective, you need to know all of these 7 things, unfortunately you need to know all of these things. We look at this very briefly, right? So first, there are 3 different companies you need to know, and then second, you need to know there are something called value chain, and part 3, part 4, actually they talk about different types of costs. You can see direct, indirect, product, period cost. So those are the 2 parts. Part 2.5 is very important. I will say you definitely have a question. You definitely will have a question in this chapter. I don't lie to you. I will say several questions, and then 2.5 definitely you have that question. 2.6 actually, I don't think you need to know 2.6 honestly. So don't even worry about this one. So I delete 2.6 later when in your when you really have your that PowerPoint there. We don't need to worry about this one. And then 2.7 fixed cost, and then variable cost. This will be talked in chapter 6. So I delete 2.6 there. We don't need to worry too much about this one. Okay, I deleted it in the blackboard. Okay, now let's get started. Right? Learning objective 1. There are 3 companies. I don't know you have heard the name, yes or no, because the service, merchandising, and the manufacturing company. There are many differences among these 3 types of companies. And then in our chapter, we focus on one important part in their balance sheet. I hope you still know what's the meaning of a balance sheet. It's assets equals to liability plus stockholder equity, right? So we will focus on one important part, which is our inventory. So which is the inventory. Why inventory is important? So inventory is your current assets. It stays in your balance sheet, right? It stays in your balance sheet. Why is important? Okay, listen to here very carefully. Because inventory is a part of your balance sheet, but it's also related with your income statement. Answer the question, why? Because when you sort your inventory, it will become cost of goods sold. When you sort your inventory, okay, you have to sell your inventory. When you sort your inventory, it will become your cost of goods sold and will be part of your income statement. Why income statement is important? It's kind of asking you why your points are important, right? Because income statement tells the investors about the income, profit, net income. So they will decide their investment based on the income, right? If you have good income, I will invest on you. If you don't have income, you have a loss, I may not invest on you. So income statement is very important. And then the inventory links the balance sheet, and then the income statement. So it's a part of a balance sheet. Once you sell your inventory, it will become cost of goods sold and stay in the income statement. This is very important logic. We will go back to this many times, but get the general idea why we focus on inventory. Okay, so service company, merchandising, and then manufacturing. I don't want to explain too much. It's in your textbook. I hope you can understand the definition just from the name. Service company, they provide a service, right? Very typical, like CPA firms, even like a bank, even like a hospital. Think about those companies. Do they have inventory? Not really, right? They don't really have a lot of inventory. Merchandising, we also talk about that, and then manufacturing, we talk that in detail. So your first job is you need to know what the 3 types of the companies, right? I think that's straightforward, nothing to really explain. Service company, they have intangible assets. They only have intangible assets. So we already talked about this. This is the largest sector of the US economy. Generally no inventory, right? They don't sell physical inventory. You go to the CPA firm, you go to the bank, you get the service there. You don't really focus on buying things. They sell intangible, which is not our traditional inventory. And the next one is the merchandising, right? It's the merchandising company. What's the meaning of merchandising? They buy things from the manufacturing and then they sell it. They resell tangible products bought from the manufacturer or the supplier. You should know this very easily, like Walmart, like Target, right? Like Best Buy. And then there are 2 subtypes. One is retailers, one is wholesale. You know, you can read this in the textbook. But wholesale, generally larger size, you know, like Costco. Retail, if you open a small store in your neighborhood, that's the retailer. But no matter what type, do they carry inventory, yes or no? Do they carry inventory, yes or no? This is the important part. They carry inventory, right? For sure, because that's their product. Otherwise, how can they sell things? So they have a lot of inventories. Okay, and then they just have basically the finished goods, right? They just have it there. You know, you want to buy cereal, you went to Target or Walmart, you found the cereal. The cereal is their inventory. And then last part is our manufacturing company. Your textbook uses the Toyota as the example. I think it's really a good example. So they use labor, plant, equipment to convert raw material into finished products, right? They don't really sell directly to customer. You know, I know Toyota also have has their dealers, but you know, they first sell to dealer and then dealer sells to you. There are 3 types of inventory. This is important. There are 3 types of inventory. So they have a raw material, they have work in process inventory, and then they have finished goods. You say, hey, professor, how to understand this part? Raw material, you go to Toyota, you go to their manufacturing department, you will find they have the tires there, they have the steel there, you know, they have all the raw material that hasn't been even used. They bought the plastic, you know, they bought the metal. So that's a part of inventory, right? So it's the raw material. We will talk more in detail also that raw material is the material that hasn't been used, hasn't been touched. So you will see those type of inventory there in Toyota. And what's the meaning of work in process? We will use work in process. We'll call it as we plot in chapter 3 also. Work in process is partially done and then partially not done. you go to see the car. It's not all the cars are finished, right? Maybe some cars still need to put the seats, some cars still need to put the lights. They are partially done. They are still working in the process. So we call it a working process. And then the third type is finished goods. It's already finished, ready to be delivered to the dealer to be sold. Okay, so they have three types of the inventory. All these three types are called, they are part of your inventory. I'll go back to the merchandising. So merchandising, it only carries one type of inventory. Basically, it's the finished goods, right? You go to Walmart, you go to Target, you want to buy cereal. You don't want to find the one that just partially finished, the working processing cereal just has the box, but not the real cereal. You want to have the finished cereal. So you can compare those three types and then see the difference. Textbook also give you a list, so you can go back there. We said, as we keep talking, many differences, but we focus on inventory. We focus on inventory. One more time, we summarize together. Service company, basically no inventory. Merchandising, basically just one. And then manufacturing has three types of different inventory. This is important. As I say, inventory is a part of your assets, but it will also affect your operating income because once it's sold, it will be cost of goods sold. Okay, learning objective 2, we talk about this one, then I stop the video here, okay? Learning objective 2, talking about value chain, why we call it a value chain? I always feel English is really my second language. Sometimes I feel so confused, hard for me to memorize the English, but sometimes I feel, especially for the names, terminology, they make a lot of sense. So why we call it a value chain? You look at this way. Two words, right? One is value, one is chain. So first is a kind of like a chain. So it has from the beginning all the way to the back. So this is kind of why we call it a chain. And then why we call it a value chain, why we don't call it the other chain? Because this is demonstrating the parts that add value to the companies, add value. So if you do any part of this function in the value chain, it will add value to your company. So we call it a value chain. There are 6 parts. Your job is you should know these 6 parts and then also know the detail. As I said in the chapter 1, the PowerPoint just gives you the outline. If you understand, you are very sure, that's good. If you say, hey, I want to know the detail, go back to your textbook. I don't want to copy paste all the details in the PowerPoint and then just read textbook for you. You can do better than me, right? So we talk about this briefly here. Your first thing is the R&D, right? Before you start making things, you have to have some research and then development. Once you do that, you design your car. We still use Toyota as the example. And then either you produce or purchase. You say, Professor, why there are 2 words? Why is produce or purchase? Remember, produce is only for manufacturing. Manufacturing you can produce, but for Target or for Walmart, they don't produce. So they get their inventory by purchasing. So we have a production for manufacturing. We have a purchase for merchandising. And then once you have your products ready, you want to market it and try to sell it. You distribute either to dealers or to customer, and then you have the customer service. Okay, I think next one, we basically talk all of these, just I'll put some words, but not in so much detail. Go back to your textbook if anything bothers you. The way I may ask you is, I give you an example. I said, you develop the new products, right? So you develop a new product. I ask you, what function, what element is this to the value chain? You need to know this is R&D, because R&D is research and developing. So the second one more time, is design. Is everything related with your product, and then the service, and then you're producing the system. So the design, not just to a product, but also how do you produce it. And then production and purchase, we talked about that. We said manufacturing, they produce, and then merchandising, they purchase, right? Manufacturing, they produce, they have to have the raw material, they have to have labor, then they have to have all other costs to produce. Merchandising, they buy, you know, they have to just get all the material, get all the finished goods ready to be sold. And then the fourth function is marketing, you know. So if I said, hey, Toyota just, you know, had their launched their advertisement during the Super Bowl season or during the football season, this fall semester coming. So what activity is related? It's related with the marketing. With the marketing, they promote and then try to advertise for their products. Once you have the marketing, then you have to distribute, right? Distribute is deliver your product. As I said, either you can go to dealers or you can sell to customers directly. And the last thing, once you sell it, you are not done. You still have some customer service related. So all of these 6 functions, they add value to the company. They add value to the company. That's the reason we call it value chain, value chain. So your job is, you know there are 6 parts. I'll review it one more time. R&D, design, and then production and produce, and then what else? Marketing, distribution, and then customer service, right? I'll draw too long. Customer service. And then you also have to know for each part, the specific example, okay, the specific example. So make sure you read textbook. Not do this. Okay, so I stop here, and then I see you in the next video. We talk about other learning objectives. Thank you, see you next time.